Good day everyone, it's Fusty back once more with a live cam and everything. It's been a little while since we've done something like this, and you know what else has been a little while? A tier list. My last tier list was in 2022, which was a while ago, and some things have definitely changed since then. So today we're going to keep it nice and simple. We're going to do a general power ranking of all of Btd6, not just chimps mode there. So we're going to be ranking all of the heroes based on where I think they stand in the Btd6 meta. We've got 4 tiers here as well. We've got Soyjack, Amogus, Based, and Cringe from best to worst there. Without any ado, let's get stuck right into it. Quick little disclaimer though, these are my general rankings. If you don't agree with them, well, you're wrong. Anywho, let's get started. So let's start off with Brickell here. Miss Brickell. We are going to put Brickell, I'm feeling the Amogus tier. Now, don't get me wrong, Brickell is still incredibly strong, one of the best chimps heroes in the entire game, but over the past year or so, Brickell has received a few nerfs here or there. You know, we're talking about the nerfs to things like price, Megamind damage there as well, but also indirect nerfs like ice nerfs there, halving the freeze time on ceramics and not allowing you to build up your Megaminds as much. These things all definitely play into the viability of Brickell. Now, don't get me wrong, she is still one of the best chimps heroes in the game. When you fully learn how to use Megamind there mostly, it's a very skill testing hero. But even outside of that there, Brickell is amazing for water maps, makes it incredibly easy to have big power spikes when you're using things like mass sub, and generally is still a great hero so long as you've got enough water to make it work. You're probably not going to stick her in a pot uncarved and try to make that happen, but hey, you know what, if you can, props to you. Alright, next up we've got Adora, and similar to Brickell, I'm thinking that we're going to put Adora in the Amogus tier here as well. Let's plop her straight up there. And yeah, I mean, Adora is also kind of in that same tier where Adora was pretty much one of the top heroes last year, but ended up receiving just a few nerfs here or there. Not anything that's necessarily backbreaking, mind you, but still noticeable nerfs like the reduction on fortified damage on her main attacks at level 9. These things definitely do play a role. However, she's still incredibly strong in terms of her scaling. You know, has amazing free play potential if you're looking to take it to around 200 plus there. She's got a bit of a weak early game though, you know, can struggle just a little bit, especially into the 30s. I think the biggest problem with Adora is need to try to continuously invest into her. Blood Sacrifice is a great ability, being able to get up to those high levels, but if you just leave Adora be, and you don't make use of it there, she's never going to be nowhere near as strong as you otherwise would be able to get her. You're going to have to invest, you know, upwards of 30,000 dollary dues in terms of upgrades to be able to even make Adora really hit those big power spikes later on in the game. Even in expert modes there, you're still going to have to send off quite a bit, and for a lot of these game modes, every dollar matters, and you might not be able to spare just a bit of money there, so you're not really going to be able to get the most out of Adora as you may be wanting to. Now, don't get me wrong, she's still incredibly versatile. She'll work in most game modes, except for things like half cash and maybe Apocalypse there as well. But even outside of all of that there, she does work in quite a lot of modes there, so can highly recommend picking up Adora. You know, playing it on pretty much anything, you'll be just fine. Okay, next up we've got Benjamin, and I'm feeling like Benjamin is easily the first hero that we're going to put up into Soyjack here. Do I have to do the there we go, alright, good enough. So I think it's pretty easy why you can see that Benjamin will be the first hero in the Soyjack. If your hero is producing a lot of money in a game like Bloons, it's always going to be good. You know, for example, you're always going to be hitting your upgrades sooner. You're always going to be having a little bit of a defensive barrier in terms of, you know, any unexpected surprises. So just being able to have more money means that you'll inherently be a lot stronger as the game progresses there. And on top of that, as if money wasn't already good enough, Ben has some of the best supporting options in the entire game. You know, having things like biohack for the early game, being able to produce a lot of extra damage on your towers. Sure, it's got a little downside there, but 2 seconds more often than not is not enough to kill you on any of the towers. Trojan is also incredible, being able to siphon out the insides of a Moab, just incredibly powerful at that stage of the game. And then on top of that, perhaps the most impactful ability, Siphon, being able to siphon the later rounds, 96s, 98s there, taking out a large amount of RBE is just so incredibly strong. I will say though, the only real downside is that he's not really that great in chimps. You can still make it work, but you're not really going to go out of your way to try to put Benjamin into a strategy unless you're doing a challenge run there more often than not, and he's okay in modes like half cash as well. Probably not going to end up playing him on deflation, but outside of that there, you really can't go wrong with Benjamin. Everyone uses Benjamin for a reason. He'll always be good, even if his money generation is somehow nerfed there and they want to try to focus more on his supporting abilities, Benjamin will still be amazing. Okay, Churchill on the other hand, I think we can safely put Churchill into the cringe category. Churchill, so after the repeated nerf to Churchill, he's not really that powerful anymore. He's mostly used as an option to handicap yourself rather than picking a better hero. I've really put a bit of time into thinking about what Churchill fulfills that any other hero doesn't fulfill. And the problem is that Churchill is a damage hero. And there's a lot of good damage heroes in the game at the moment. You've got Adora, you've got Aelia, you've got things like Corvus, the new hero, and all of these options are just out and out better than Churchill himself there, and a lot cheaper on top of that. Some of these heroes also apply a bit of utility to the team, whereas Churchill is just pure raw damage. So on top of being the most expensive hero in the game, Churchill doesn't really fulfill any of the roles that you need to, and when you want to try to hit super ceramics in the late game, Churchill doesn't do that all that great until he hits his level 13 or 14 there. So I can't think of anything, I thought of, do you want him for easy maps there? Because there's a lot of straight lines there. He's really too expensive and he's not going to make any difference, to be useful enough at that part of the game there. Harder maps, you can't really make the best out of Churchill because you're not getting any straight lines there, and Churchill loves straight lines to be able to get the most damage out of it. So for a hero that's supposed to be well-rounded and generally powerful, more often than not, I'd rather take something like Quincy, get Quincy down a lot sooner, and have a lot more general safety over something like Churchill. On the upside though, Churchill is pretty basic and easy to understand, so if you're a newer player and you just want to mess around and have some fun, Churchill's pretty great for that. So, +1 point for all the tank lovers out there, and really that's all that I can give Churchill. Alright, so next up we have Corvus, and Corvus to me, well, Corvus is a really easy one here because not only is Corvus not cringe, he is not only not based, he is definitely not the imposter, and funnily enough, he's not Soyjack either. He's in fact a completely new tier. We gotta add a row above here because we gotta get the Super Soyjack into play here. Boom. Look at that. Corvus is by far the best hero in the game at the moment. So the reason why Corvus is the best hero in the game at the moment is really simple. Corvus has an incredibly large toolbox at his disposal and doesn't drain resources as fast as Geraldo does when it comes to using money or anything like that, because Corvus doesn't use money. He has his own inbuilt system of mana, and with good resource management, the amount of things that you can do with him is absolutely incredible. Like, I'm talking, we have seen players hit super mines on expert maps. We're talking $140,000 out of like the 175 that you get to make use of there. Corvus just gets to save up for all of that. There's not a lot of things that you can really go wrong with Corvus there. Unfortunately, he is very micro intensive, so if you're the kind of player who does love to make Pursuit on your Apache Prime and just let it run rampant there, not really the hero for you. But for all the insane challenge players who love doing wacky sort of things with them there, you will also not love him because he makes everything too easy. But for everyone else, Corvus is really good. Definitely recommend putting some time into learning how to use him there, and you will definitely be rewarded for it. Alright, cool. Time to round out the entire tier here. I feel a little bit bad for the base tier, so we're going to put Etienne straight smack bang into that base tier. Now, I think Etienne's been around for a while, and as everyone knows, Etienne is an incredibly solid support hero. He offers a really strong mid-game with things like UCAV and the drones, and also global camo detection. Does fall off a little bit in the later game, however, due to his level 20s not being that great, and pretty much anything past level 16 is just generally a dead zone up until you hit level 20, and as I said before, level 20 is not that great, so, you know, can fall off a little bit there. On top of that, Etienne also struggles from a game mode that you really want to play him in over a lot of other better global heroes like Sai, Corvus, Geraldo, even heroes like Adora as well. It's just a bit of a struggle to really find a reason to play Etienne over something that might be considered better. However, a similar argument to before, if you're a newer player and you love playing co-op with your friends and feel like you're contributing, Etienne is a godsend to a lot of teammates there. They will love you for putting down free camo detection and everything like that, so if you want to be that solid support player there, feel free to pick up Etienne and thrive with him. Okay, next up we've got Aelia, and similar to Etienne here, I think we're going to put Aelia into the based tier. See, funnily enough, I actually feel like Aelia has the opposite problem to a lot of the heroes in this tier, where rather than not having a particular niche, Aelia actually has a really strong niche, which is destroying mobs and does it really, really well. On the flip side though, everything else is a struggle. You know, Aelia's early game is arguably the worst out of any hero. Her Heartstopper ability, her level 3, is not really that great and doesn't come into play all that often, if at all. Sacrificial Totem, however, is incredibly powerful, but you'll typically use Aelia in Chimps mode, and surprise surprise, you can't use Totem there because you don't have any extra lives. Aelia also is a little bit weirder for new players because a lot of heroes will be picked to complement the strategy that you're going for. You'll pick Gwen with fire towers, Pat with faster firing towers, things of that nature. With Aelia, however, it's the opposite. You'll pick Aelia and warp your strategy around her to make it work. Overall, Aelia is a very strong late game hero, very strong free play as well, but pretty hard to recommend for newer players unless they know what they're doing. Alright, very cool. Next up we've got Geraldo here, and Geraldo, I mean look, Corvus is in a tier of his own, but Geraldo is definitely up there as well in this soy jack tier. Now don't get it twisted, Geraldo is still incredibly powerful, offering a wide variety of tools for every situation, much like Corvus there. However, Geraldo costs money, and as we mentioned before, when you've got limited money to work with, and you overly rely on Geraldo for defense, it can detract from your overall strategy later on, especially in modes where it gets a little bit tighter, like Chimps mode on expert maps there. If you're using Geraldo too much, it means that you're not going to be able to save up for your powerful tier 5 abilities. However, I would argue that Geraldo has a better toolbox than Corvus does there, but again, due to the inherent nature of how both of them work there, I'd say that Geraldo has a larger downside there. That being said though, things like Pickles, the NFT, Sharpening Stone, Camo Potion, the money thing, no, it's not Manure. Look, heck, even the Pet Bunny is decent now as well, so Geraldo's got a lot of decent tools, especially if you know how to use him there. He does, again, require a large amount of knowledge of the game and how to make the most out of him, but once you understand when to apply Geraldo's tools, he's by far one of the best heroes in the game. So much so that even though they may nerf one or two things, they would pretty much have to nerf his entire kit to make him be less good than he actually is right now. He also works on a large amount of game modes as well, pretty much everything except maybe half cash, so yeah, definitely easy to recommend, hard to master hero, Geraldo. Okay, we're pretty much halfway there at this point, so next up we've got Gwen, and I think I'm going to stick Gwen right between Aelia and Etienne. I mean, Gwen is fine. She's got some really solid synergies with meta towers like Dragon's Breath and Ring of Fire, and Firestorm is great in the mid game as well as a buff to all your towers for a temporary amount of time. She will hit late game just as fast as everyone else there, you know, around in the early 90s there more often than not, but around that time there she really starts to fall off as the extra damage that you end up getting out of her doesn't really work all that well. However, she does work really well with solid overdrive strategy, but doesn't really offer much except raw damage there, and sometimes the synergies with Dragon's Breath. So overall, Gwen's a really solid hero. You know, just because I put a hero in base tier doesn't mean that they're necessarily bad, it's just that I feel like there are just heroes that do some things better and are overall more strong. Alright, Obyn. I don't want to upset a few people here, but I gotta say the truth. And the truth is that Obyn's a bit cringe. Obyn's a bit cringe. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, Obyn actually does have quite a few strengths, you know, he's just a little bit lackluster in quite a few areas. For example, Obyn's main identity, right, is his ability to buff up druids, and unfortunately, Geraldo actually just does that job better now thanks to things like Sharpening Stone and Camo Potions. Brambles, unreliable there, and Wall of Trees does kind of have a massive cooldown and it's one of his better tools, so you're not going to be able to make use of it that often. I'd actually say that Obyn's main strengths actually lie in his early game power spikes as well. Obyn's base attack is really strong, being able to see through walls, has decent pierce, and even homes in on the target as well. I mentioned Wall of Trees earlier, and it is a massive level 10 ability as well, even with the long cooldown, so Obyn definitely does have some things going for him. On top of that, Obyn's one of the rare heroes that actually finds a niche in what I would argue a lot of other heroes struggle with, which is half cash. Even though I think things like Quincy and Sauda are better overall heroes for the game mode there, Obyn still has some good maps that he can be used on, things like Workshop, Mesa, things where, you know, Quincy and Sauda may struggle just a little bit. So, even though I've put Obyn as cringe, he's not that cringe, he's a little bit cringe, kind of like me, you know? Alright, cool. So, next up we've got Pat, and, I mean, if I'm being honest here, Pat is pretty based, but I'd say he's probably a bit more based than Gwen there. It's unfortunate, because Pat's kind of in this weird spot at the moment where Pat's kit is incredibly friendly to stall strategies, but both abilities are damaging, and it's hard to find a balance between both. So you're kind of playing a hero that you're focusing in on a small area there and trying to make that work, but Pat kind of relies heavily on his ability to level up. You know, being able to hit his level 13 and 14 is where he really starts to find a lot of power. Unfortunately, he's going to hit those incredibly late on regular maps there, and on expert maps his short range really does not benefit him at all. So he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with a lot of these things. He does work well on things like Flooded Valley and Ouch though, so those are two maps which I would particularly look towards that. He works on those maps mostly because of the Pat Tac Zone strategy with the aircraft carrier and the Grandmaster Ninja strategy, even though I would argue that Geraldo is better for that on Out. Overall, what I'm trying to say here is that even though I think Pat is still good, it's kind of due to power creep that he's kind of fallen off a little bit, so ultimately I think if we see Sharpening Stone get tuned down here, we might see Pat come back into meta for some of these strategies, but for now, I'd say that Pat will stay right where he is. Okay, next up we've got Sai, and Sai's a bit tricky. They are a bit tricky, so I honestly, before I would usually put Sai up in Soy Jack, but I gotta say that Sai's probably fallen just a little bit. I'd probably put Sai in about a Mogus here. They're definitely pretty sus, let's be real. It's kind of a fall from grace as well, as Sai used to be the best stall hero in the entire game, and the strongest hero in the game as well. But due to the recent nerfs that they suffered, have ended up being less powerful than before. You know, things like the bloon main attack there, being able to shake a ceramic for a good 5 seconds there, being shortened quite a bit, actually ended up playing a pretty detrimental role to their ability to stall out. You know, relying heavily on being able to get those extra stuns, those extra psychic screams up there, just not being able to do those as often there means that Sai lost a lot of power in that regard. Not only that, but also price nerfs. Level 10 has also taken a bit of a nerf there in regards to just outwardly destroying bloons, and ultimately I can't put Sai up in the top tier anymore. Still, Sai is incredibly good, with global pressure plus an absurd level 10 ability still, even after the nerfs. Once you get past Sai's kind of lackluster early game, you should be in a pretty good spot. On top of that, Sai is also pretty good in multiple game modes, you know, is a decent choice for half cash as well, especially on more open maps. So ultimately, Sai, I would argue, is still a very versatile hero with a lot to give. Ah yes, Quincy. So I think it's only fair if we're giving Corvus his own tier here, that we go above and beyond for Quincy. We're gonna make a Quincy Son of Quincy tier here. Boom. Best hero in the entire game. Everyone knows Quincy, he never misses. He hits all of his shots. The balloons never get past. Alright, cool. With that being said, alright, cool. We all know where Quincy actually belongs here. He's pretty based. I mean, really, what is there to say about Quincy? He's an all-round decent hero. He's got great cost, fast levels, never misses there, I think. I mean, he doesn't really have any overwhelming strengths. You know, his ability to clear up around 63 and 78 is incredibly strong, but outside of that, he's pretty much just the all-round American hero. Heck, you can even beat the entirety of Btd6 with Quincy there, as a particular streamer by the name of Slipskip has proven. So Quincy, you can't really go wrong with him. He's also incredibly solid for pretty much every game mode, especially half cash. Being able to get Quincy down in the starting rounds to alleviate early pressure is amazing there. Funnily enough, it's kind of the same idea with chimps. Quincy is by far one of the most reliable stars, allowing him to scale early and hit level 10 incredibly quickly, making your mid-game a lot easier. I mean, look, he's just good, dude. What do you want me to say? It's Quincy. Alright, look, I'm not biased here before anyone says, but I mean, ISAB paid me. No, but seriously, Sauda is one of the best heroes in the entire game, is the best early game hero on pretty much any map that allows you to place it down there, continues to be incredibly strong in the mid to late game there as well, doesn't actually fall off all that hard due to the abilities, and so long as you're buying the support towers like the Ices and the Glue Monkeys that you want to be buying anyway, she's still going to be outputting ridiculous amounts of damage. But let's be real here, her real letdown is her range, meaning she's not going to be completely dominant on all of the maps like some of the expert maps. Still, a good 90% of the maps that Sauda can be put down on, she is incredibly strong and provides a lot of stability through the early to mid game. And look, even though people will argue this, I think that Sauda is still the most beginner-friendly hero in the entire game, as it allows people to start actually experiencing some of the later rounds. Unfortunately, you'll have to learn how to play the game without her, but until then, she is pretty dang good, dude. Alright, and last but not least, we've got Striker here, and I'm probably gonna put Striker in the base tier. Yeah, that looks about right. Again, Striker is a really solid support hero with his level 3 stun, his mortar and bomb buffs, and the reset on level 10. Unfortunately, because of this, he's also incredibly selfish, in the sense that he really wants to only be buffing bomb and mortars, and that's it. There's not really much use to use him otherwise. He's a great hero in chimps, however, with some of the best strategies related to his involvement. Things like Pop and Ore, Bomb Spam, Biggest One, all that sort of jazz. So really, he's a bit of a niche hero, but definitely strong when you end up using him. Anyway guys, that is the official hero ranking for patch 40 there. Did you agree with everything that I said? If you did, leave a comment down below there telling me how smart I am there. If you didn't, however, still leave a comment down below there telling me how wrong I am. I definitely need to know. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you all next time. Take care.